everybody to our Migration Center webinar today. Our topic today is the migration to OpenText Documentum D2 applications, and we are about to get going. Let me introduce our today's speakers. Responsible for the slideshow in the beginning is Florian, our Director of FME Products. Showing you the live demo is Cosmin, our Migration Center consultant from FME Romania. And then there's me, Mark, and I'm responsible for product marketing here at FME. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. Please note that during the whole session, all attendees are muted and in listen-only mode. If any questions should arise, you are welcome to put it into the chat box of the GoToWebinar panel, and we will then take care of it in a Q&A session after the webinar. Please also note that this session is being recorded and shared with you after the webinar. All right, with this, I'm going to pass on to Florian, who will then start the slideshow.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark, for the introduction. So, as Mark mentioned, I will guide you through the slideshow today. And we will cover a couple of topics around migration and especially around Migration Center for D2. So we will start to talk a little bit about the challenges, the use cases we address with our product. We will explain you a little bit about why you should use Migration Center for search migration scenarios. I will give you a little bit of information about what are the difference between us and other systems, and especially with the focus on the Project ROI you can expect from our product. Then we will talk a little bit about the capabilities of the product itself, but also we will talk a little bit about the option you have during D2 migration, especially if you are Documentum users. So you are able to have different options to migrate, for example, a web application to D2. Then we will have the demo made by Cosmin. So, and then we will talk a little bit about the pricing, about some special offerings we have for you, and also what we can deliver in terms of services at FME. So, and at the end, we will have the Q&A session and answer your questions, which you put into the chat box. So let me start a little bit with to give you an overview about the migration use cases we address with our products. We separated the use case a little bit in different areas. So it starts typically with classic migration scenarios. That's, for example, migration from an old laptop application to D2, but also migrations from on-prem to off-prem systems. So that means to the cloud. So that's for us the classic migration scenario. So then another use case or another area we address is the consolidation area, and this is especially for customers who, let's say, have Documentum, for example, or other enterprise content management in place for a really long period of time. So, and typically you build a couple of repositories spread around your organization, and at one point you probably decide to consolidate those repositories to one or two repositories, just to make sure that you can reduce the total cost of ownership in terms of the administration and the maintenance effort you probably have. So, but also technology consolidation is a topic for us. So then another use case area we address is the extend area, and that's especially for customers who want to, let's say, extend the enterprise content management system across the whole enterprise. So typically customers or our customers start simple with 1, 2, 3 departments for special, let's say, business cases. So, and now maybe they are on the point where they want to decide to go through or to roll out the enterprise content management system to other divisions as well. And we can integrate file shares or other third-party platforms into, let's say, your enterprise content management of choice. So that means, for example, Documentum or Documentum D2. So then we also can help customers to replace file shares or also legacy third-party products to Documentum or to D2. We have another one which is more focused on archiving. So we are able to, for example, archive documents also during the migration project to an info archive, enterprise archive if you want to, or just decommission legacy applications and so on and so forth. And there are a couple of other use cases like test data management, time schedule, batch import, the publishing of documents through other systems like intranet portals or something like that, and also the reclassification and reorganization of content objects and ACLs and things like that are supported by our product. Okay, so why you should use all those, or why you should use Migration Center for all those use cases? There are simple answers to that. So first of all, Migration Center is 100% out-of-the-box content migration platform. And what does it mean? It means that you do not have to program or script any things during your migration project. So everything comes out of the box. There's a UI available to configure all the processes, all the jobs, and all the activities around your migration project. And it's a really proven software. We are now more than 12 years on the market with more than 450 projects running currently with our software, and we're supporting many platforms, not just D2 and WebTop, but also we're supporting from the source side many platforms like file shares, databases, Alfresco, Firstdoc, so on and so forth. And everything during the migration runs in the back end. So that means we do not have any downtimes during the migration. So, and all your, let's say, business processes or business operations can continue during the migration, and you do not interrupt any kind of processes during or by the migration. So then we have an engine inside our product which helps you to reclassify or transform metadata, and there are a lot of algorithms and functions available to create new objects within the target repository. And migrations is also fit for regulated systems. So that's really important for customers from the pharmaceutical industry. And here we can say that we cover about 80% of the top 10 pharmaceuticals with our technology. And it is also made, of course, for high performance and large volumes of data. And we have a global service presence. So if you want to use Migration Center out of the box, that's good, but we can also deliver services around the world by our FME professional service team or through our professional partners, which can help you to dealing with any kind of migration project challenges. There's a simple pricing model. I will come to that point later. And we are also certified by a couple of leading ECM vendors. If we look a little bit more into the details of Migration Center, so then you can see that Migration Center mainly depends on or consists of 3 different main components. So there is the Windows client on top, which is the control center for all migration phases, jobs, processes. And there is a central database in the middle, which handles the business logic and all performance critical processes. And last but not least, there is the job server, which is the Java server, which runs on different operating systems. And this job server handles the import and export operations during your migration project. So there are many passes, as I mentioned. So there are many passes which we support. So from the source side, you can see there are connectors for Alfresco, for Firstdoc, for any kind of SQL database application. So it could be also third-party ECM applications. It's really powerful, this adapter. So then we support the whole Documentum stack. We support eRoom, file shares. We support any kind of Lotus Notes databases. We support OpenText, Content Server, and Suite 16, and as well as Outlook and SharePoint. On top of that, we have also an API available to develop your own connectors if you want to, or let the connectors develop by FME or other partners. And we have also a couple of other interfaces to integrate your metadata and content into the migration process by, for example, using XML files, Excel spreadsheets, or CSV files. So that's a little bit an overview about the architecture. And let's talk a little bit about the ROI for your project. So typically you have different options to dealing with, let's say, outdated ECM applications, like, for example, WebTop applications. So you can keep the documents where they are and use 2 different systems, or you can do it manually, but also you can use scripts and you can use frameworks which are probably available on the market as open source, for example. But if you do so, and then typically a typical project scenario looks like you see on the screen currently. So it starts always with the conception and planning phase, and then followed by the setup of the enterprise content management system, the customization and the configuration of the system. But then you need to start developing your scripts. And these scripts and tools which you need to develop are typically restricted to this particular scenario you have in mind during that project. And of course, you have to test all the scripts in terms of performance, in terms of the core functionalities, and so on and so forth. And that's definitely, yeah, it's really, really time consuming. So if you're done with the script and you're sure that everything works as expected, so then you typically start the content migration based on your scripts. And that's typically is a big risk because you don't know the performance because you have probably just test your scripts with some test data. But if you, let's say, if you do the real project, you see that if you want to migrate millions of records, the performance is pure, and you have to let's say to enhance your scripts to reach your required performance. So after the migration, you do the acceptance test and then the go live. That's the typical scenario which happens if you do not use Migration Center or any other out-of-the-box products. And now, if we have a look to project with Migration Center, we can help you and reduce the effort in a couple of different phases. So, for example, in the planning and conception phase, we can help you with best practices. So that means you can easily calculate and plan your migration project, and that's reduced, of course, the time you need for the conception and planning phase. During the setup, configuration, customization phase, of course, Migration Center can do nothing for you in this case because that's really related to the system itself. But you do not need to develop any scripts. This reduces the amount of effort dramatically. And also the content migration itself, it's everything is pre-tested. The performance is easily to calculate, and that allows you to reduce the effort you need to do the content migration itself really easily. And also during the acceptance test, we can help you because Migration Center provides a couple of functionalities to validate your migration before you're committing the data to the repository, to the target repository. And we have also a couple of automated test scenarios inside our Migration Center that helps you to make sure that the content migration works as you expected, and no, for example, rollbacks are required. All of those things are, let's say, results in about 60% of cost saving and 80% of time saving for the content migration topics within your enterprise content management project. So let me summarize a couple of outstanding product capabilities for you. So first of all, as I mentioned, we have a metadata and object transformation engine inside our product, which allows you to transform any kind of objects from a source system to the new target system and of course the corresponding object definition. Migration Center that's tested and built for large migrations, so we can scale the product components within your infrastructure. So that means typically we can say today that we can reach the maximum performance of your source and target system by scaling your migration infrastructure to your required performance KPIs. So then we have functionalities inside which helps you to test and simulate your migration. So that means you can everything simulate before commit the data to the repository, and the central migration database allows you also to do, for example, a delta migration. So that means you can keep the user working with the old system as long as they would. So, and Migration Center can take care on all changes made during the migration process and integrate those changes into the process and upgrade success or kind of delta migration approach, update the target repository with the changes the user made. And then over the weekend, for example, you can switch to the new system and shut down the old system. And that leads to no disconnecting operations. At the end, so Migration Center also is ready for sensitive environments. So there is a history inside. All your migration activities are stored in a database, in a historical database, so that you exactly see what was happened during the migration and what kind of changes are made based on your objects, documents, metadata, etc. And as I mentioned also on the previous slides, so there is an open connectivity architecture. So that means we have an API which allows you to customize or build your own connectors for systems we probably have not on our out-of-the-box list. As I mentioned, I would also talk a little bit about the two options you probably have to migrate to D2. So first of all, there is the classic migration scenario to migrate to D2. This is especially especially for customers who want to, for example, migrate from other systems like SharePoint or from a database or whatsoever to Documentum D2. And this is a classic ETL process. So that means we're extracting the objects and content and all information around those objects and store that into our Migration Center database. And with the help of Migration Center, you can transform the old object to the new object structure and definition. And then you import the new objects together and metadata together with the content to the new Documentum D2 environment. So that's the classic scenario. And here we're supporting a couple of capabilities. For example, we are for the D2 specific capabilities, we address, for example, auto naming, auto linking, dynamic security, owner-based rules, directory attribute validation, and we can also apply D2 lifecycles. So for the document itself, we of course supporting any kind of object types. We can transform and modify any kind of attributes, ACLs. We can migrate outer trails. System attributes are still keep as is. So that means so the creation date, modification date, and owners are the same at the end of the migration in the new system. And we also are able to set lifecycle states, of course, as I mentioned, also for the D2 capabilities. So workflows are supported, aspects, versions, relations, visual documents, links, and also value lists. And for folders, the same. All object types are supported, including the metadata, the attributes, ACLs, etc. And also we are able to automatically create the folders based on rules, and also links are supported in value lists. So that's for the classic migration scenario. So, but if we are talking about migrations from a web top application to D2, it is not necessary to follow an ETL process. So you can also follow our ETU process, which means we are able to extract, transform, and update the existing repository. We call it in-place migration. So that means during the migration, we're just extracting the object information together with the metadata, ACLs, links, etc., etc. And during the transformation, you just transform the metadata, the structure, the folder structure, for example, and the object types. So, and then we update the objects and all your structures within the existing repository and make it available for the D2 client application. Here, especially, we support, of course, a web top to D2 applications or migrations. We also support, for example, First Talk to D2 Life Science Solution Suite migrations. We're able to reorganize your folder structure during that process. We can reorganize, of course, also the permission and the object model, so and metadata. So that means if you try to change your object model during your D2 migration, so we are able to change all the metadata and object models as required. So there are a couple of benefits by using the D2 in-place migration approach. First of all, it is much faster, of course, than moving the content from one to another system. And it reduces costs because you do not need to set up a new environment. You just can use the existing repository and the existing infrastructure of your Documentum platform. And also there is a feature inside, or let's say because of the in-place migration, we can also let's say retain the internal IDs like the our object ID, so that the references are still exist after the migration as before. Okay, so now it's time for the demo. But before we start with the demo, I will give you some insights about the demo you could expect within the next couple of minutes. So we prepare a demo for you for OpenText Documentum Webtop to Documentum D2. Here it is a Documentum 7.1 application, and the D2 is 4.7. And also, in addition, we also prepare another scenario just to show how easy it is for the migration from a content server 10.5 to D2 application. So before we start with the demo, I will show you that last slide just to make sure that you understand the approach during the migration. So Migration Center, as I mentioned, is a platform. It's much more than just an ETL tool. It has a couple of phases which supports you during your migration project. It starts typically with an analyze phase. So that means we will extract all metadata, all information, and based on that information, you can execute a couple of, let's say, analyzing tasks. So you can have a look to the metadata, to the consistency of the metadata. You can see how many documents are in your system, which volume the whole bunch of documents have, and so on and so forth. And then the next phase is organize. So an organize means to manage your, let's say, your mass data. So if you have millions of records, typically you will not find one transformation model for all those documents. So, and for that, we have the organize phase, which allows you to break down the large amount of documents into manageable sets and define for each set, and that's the next phase, to define for each set the corresponding transformation rules. So that means you can really manipulate any kind of metadata and ACLs, photo structures, and so on and so forth. So if you're done with this transformation, we need to make sure that this new metadata and this new objects really fits to the target system. And this is done in the validation phase. Here we will test your new metadata and object model against the target system without committing the data. So that's everything is internally in our product, and it shows you the errors if some errors occurs during this phase. So if you have detected some errors or mistakes during the transformation and validation phase, so you can easily correct these errors by, for example, changing metadata manually, or just roll back the transformation phase and change your transformation rules and start the validation again. So if you're done and all the documents are in a validated state, you click on the button, configure, or let's say configure the import, and click on the button, and then the documents will be imported as shown before during the transformation and validation phase. Okay, so now it's time to hand over to Cosmin, and Cosmin will guide you through that phases and show you how it works for Documentum D2 migrations.
Thank you, Florian. Hello, everybody. You should be able to see the Migration Center client window, which is, as Florian said, where you will do your work and configure all of your tasks. So we will start with the first phase, which is the analyze phase. And in the client window, this will be represented by the scanners window. In order to connect to a new system, to a source system, you would need to create a new scanner. You will select a scanner type. In this case, it would be Documentum. Select a job server where this would run. Give it a name. And then below you would see you'll have a list of parameters which are used to connect and provide and select all the different features which are needed for running the scan and exporting and extracting the content and the metadata from your source system. In order to save some time, I have already configured a scanner that connects to our system. And I will show you quickly um, what we will be scanning. So I have a folder in a cabinet which contains uh, a folder structure with 7 different files, which are of a custom type and contain free custom attributes. So with that being said, after you have configured the scanner with what you need, you just hit run, and then the scanner will be changed to the status running. You can monitor the scan by clicking the history view, and here you will see a list of all the scan runs. You can run multiple scans with the same configuration or change the configuration and run other scans on the same scanner. So right now we have 69 objects scanned from the Documentum system, the WebTop system. We can view the objects. So what you are seeing now is a grid from the Migration Center database with all the metadata extracted from the Documentum system. And of course, the content is also linked here and saved into the staging area for migrating further into your target system. After we run, I will also start the OpenText scan, the content server 10.5 scan, just to show you how easy it is to run multiple scans, and these scans can run in parallel, one next to another without any issue. And after we have finished scanning our data and extracting all of the objects, we can move on to the next phase, which is the organize phase. This will be represented by the migration sets, or MIG sets for short. And here, in order to create a new MIG set, you'll click the new button, you will type a new name, and you will select the migration path. So I have installed all the migration paths here, but you will select only what you need. In this case, let's say Documentum to D2. You can add a short description to help you keep in mind and better organize the data. After you select the migration set, you can go and select the actual scan run. So here you will see a list of all the scans available um, for this particular migration path. So in this case, all the Documentum scans. You can select your scan here, and it's good to keep in mind that you can filter the objects. You don't need to select all the objects of one scan run. You can filter them based on their attribute values, or you can use some advanced filters to create a more complicated filtering scheme. Again, in order to save time, I will use one of the pre-existing configurations that I've made. We just open it, select our scan, and we select our objects. And what this does is, you see now, this particular mix set will have the objects that we previously scanned locked into this mix set, so they are linked to this mix set, and you cannot put them in another mix set. After this is done, we will do the same thing for the OpenText uh, scan. Okay, so now after you have selected your objects, you can go into the transformation phase, which is where you manipulate your metadata and configure what you want and how you want to go in terms of metadata in your system. So this is achieved by using transformation rules. So on the left side here, you will see I have created several transformation rules, and each transformation rule has, you can use in each transformation rule several functions which are very useful for changing the metadata and making sure that everything looks the way you want. So here I have free attributes which I use to extract some data from the source object, and use some regular expressions to make sure that the data is in the format I want. We're also going to take the object name and then the creation date. In order to show you the complete process that Florian was talking about, which is the uh, correct and validate, correct, and then transform again. I also left an intentional errors here, so we are going to set an invalid date to a date attribute, and that will cause the import to cause an error. After you have configured all your transformation rules and make sure everything is okay, you will apply transformation, and this will transform the metadata based on the rules you have created, and then you will apply validation, which will validate the objects based on the object model. So as you can see right now, the objects are in an error state, and if we go there to the error objects, we will see that there are attributes which could not be validated. And if we go, we will see that this creation date attribute is not in a correct format, and it's not a valid date. So what you do, you simply go back to the mixed transformation rules, you correct uh, the functions which were causing the error or which was not correct, and then you reset the error objects and simply transform again. And now you will have your objects in the validated state. When the objects are in the validated state, that just means that they are ready to be passed on to the importer, which will actually migrate um, the metadata and the content into your target system. So moving on to the next stage, which is the actual import. Um, I will just start the import from the start because I am running all of this on my local computer VM, and it's running through a VPN which is severely bottlenecked. So it will take a few minutes to actually transfer the content. And in the meantime, I will explain to you um, the parameters and properties of the importer. So right now you can see the import is running. And if you want to create a new importer, you will do the same as you did with the scanner. The window looks very similar. You create a new scanner, you select the type, you type a name, and you will have the parameters specific to that importer. And here for the D2 importer, you can see that we have the username, the password, and the repository. Let me just open up the already configured one. So this is our repository where we will be migrating. You can see we've checked the import objects. And here what is most important is um, the specific D2 features, which is the rules of the D2 configuration. So I have configured in our D2 environment some very simple auto naming, um, security, and auto linking rules, and also a very basic property page. And I have checked that I want the import to be done with applying the auto naming, the auto linking, and um, the security rules. And this will make sure that after the objects are imported to the folder where we specified, that they will be triggered with the rules and transformed and moved according to the configuration in the D2 environment. So let's take a look at the objects. So if we see for the Documentum objects, you see that's already 16 objects have been migrated. If we go to the uh, other importer, you see we have some more objects, and I just used you can also see in real time in the mixsets view uh, how many objects have been moved from the validated state to the imported state and are successfully imported. Um, I just used two separate imports here just to exemplify that you can run multiple importer jobs in parallel, and they will be running in parallel on the same job server. But I could have just as well used one importer and assigned both mixsets to the same importer. Where this depends on how you want to approach this. And since we already have some of the um, documents imported, we can go on to our D2 interface and check and see if according to our rules, the MC demo cabinet has been created, and according to our auto linking configuration, which is based, if we take a quick look at the auto linking configuration, you will see that it's based on the free custom attributes that I have, cost1, cost2, and cost3, and everything is linked under the MC demo cabinet. And initially, the files are imported into the temp cabinet because that's how I specified it in the mix set. And then afterwards, with the auto linking, they are linked with to their appropriate folders. And I have also set using the same attributes, I have specified for the auto naming that one of the attributes should be added at the beginning of the name. Um, the documents are also have applied all the security um, rules that I have specified and everything. So at this moment, the migration job, so to say, is pretty much done. All you have to do is wait for the import to finish. As I said, it's running through a VPN and it's a bit slow on in this configuration right now. So at the moment, we can say the import job is pretty much done.
So thanks again for the short demo. Again, there's much more to say about Migration Center, but because of the time we scheduled for that webinar, we just show you the main functionalities just to give you an idea how Migration Center works. So if you need or if you have a need to get a more detailed demo and ask your questions, especially for your environment. So please feel free to get in touch with us and schedule a one-by-one session. So we are happy to help you here. Yeah, before we move on to the Q&A session, I have a couple of other slides. I would just give you some information about the pricing. So as I mentioned, the pricing model is really flexible. So we have two general models available for you. So one is let's say the purchase model. You can purchase a license together with the support and maintenance. So as you can see here, for example, so you want to purchase Migration Center for long-term use in that case. So the core of the product is 20,000 euros, and for example here, file system 2 Documentum D2 would be another 7,500 euros plus the 20% maintenance per year. So, but there's another option. This is the leasing option. This is especially made for, let's say, one and done migration. So you want just to migrate your, for example, laptop application to a D2 application, and then you have no further use cases for Migration Center. So then the option would be to lease the product. So the leasing is always 12 months. For the core, it would be 10,000 euros plus another 3,750 euros for for example, file system to D2 migration pass. So the price is the price are different for each migration pass. So if you need more information about the pricing, so get in touch with us. So and let us know which kind of migration passes do you need. When we say pass, so we always mean the source to the target. So for example, in the case of the demo, for example, it would be Documentum to D2, and the other migration path is OpenText to D2, which we shown in the demo. But yeah, feel free to request your individual price for your migration path. So including that's something I would mention here, including in the leasing, there of course is the 12-month support period. So there is no additional cost for support. Just this 13,750 euros for a file system to D2 migration. So, and yeah, because we are close to Q4, so we have also opened our year-end offering for our customers. So that means everyone who purchased the product before end of this year have the opportunity to get the first year maintenance free of charge. Okay, so yeah, that was mainly everything about the product, but I would also like to mention our services here. So at FME, so we are able to help you in a couple of different areas in terms of the service of the migration and upgrading services. So we are able to provide you analysis and planning services. We can do proof of concepts. We help you during your project and communication management. So we have on-site and remote training available. We can help you during the installation and configuration. We can develop individual connectors for your systems if you need to. Or we can also deliver the full service, including Migration Center. So that means it's a kind of migration as a service approach. We providing, of course, product maintenance and support. We can help you with our consultants during the quality insurance phase. So that means we can do all the black box tests and acceptance tests for you, defining test cases, test plans, and so on and so forth. And also we can help you to monitor and report your migration. So everything is available from our professional service team. So, and if you need help during your migration project and you not just want to use Migration Center alone, so then we are glad to help you also with our professional service team and solving your migration issues and helping you to managing your challenges. So yeah, that's so far from my side, and I will hand over to Mark again. He will give you some more information about what next and what kind of let's say campaigns and information we have for you. So Mark, it's your turn again.
Thank you very much, Florian, and thank you, Cosmin, for the great demo. Yeah, as you can see, we offer many different webinars, and if you ever want to take a look at one of our past webinars, you can just click on the link and go to our YouTube channel. I will place the link into the chat box in a second. And another special we have right now is our extended Pay What You Wish special, in which you as the customer can decide how much you want to pay for Migration Center. Last but not least, we also do have a free evaluation copy in which you can test the full Migration Center software for a 2-week period. And yeah, if any other inquiries should arise, you can always reach out to Florian or to any of us via the displayed email address. Yeah, our website, if you want to get further insights on our product and our services, on different references, or want to get single links to the webinars I just mentioned, just go to migrationcenter.com and you will find all the information on there. All right, I guess it's time for our Q&A session. I'll just gonna read out the question loud, and you, Florian, or Cosmin can answer either way. So let's start. First question is, what about full text server explore, export, and import capabilities with regard to Documentum?
Okay, maybe I can answer that question. So we during the migration, we do not support the Explore index. So that means we just migrating the objects to Documentum D2, and of course the index needs to be created automatically after the migration. I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you, Florian. I'll just move on to the next question. If any question is not answered to your full content, just reach out to us afterwards and we'll get back at you ASAP. So, question number 2, does the D2 importer support life cycles?
Yes, the D2 importer does support life cycles and is able to set the first 2 or 3 states of the life cycle with triggering their actions. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Cosmin. Question number 3, which D2 versions are supported?
The D2 versions supported are, I believe, starting from 4.1 and up until the most recent version, which we added support, is 4.7. And of course, we do support the life sciences suite.
Okay, perfect.
So typically, let me extend this question a little bit. So typically, after a new D2 version is released, we need about 1 to 2 months to upgrade our software and provide the corresponding capabilities for the versions. So that's just yeah.
Okay, thank you, Florian, for the addition. Our next question, is an in-place migration from WebTop to D2 Life Science Solution Suite possible?
Yes, that's possible. you can migrate, for example, and that's frequently used by our customers, for example, to get rid of, for example, First Doc and migrate First Doc to D2 Life Science Solution Suite.
Okay. Last but not least, our last question so far. Are D2 taxonomies and DQL validation possible when importing?
Yes, so the D2 importer is able to use the validation of the property pages in D2, and it also supports, fully supports the validation of taxonomies and DQL attributes and so on. Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Florian and Cosmin. I'm guessing we are through with the questions so far. That's about it for the webinar today. I thank everybody for attending. You can, as you can see on your screen, you can follow us on our social media channels or reach out to us through the social media channels at all times. That's it for today. Thank you from my side. And always remember, it's Migration Center you love to work with.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.